the wisdom and experience of Robert Craddock. Hello to you, Crash.
G'day, Jared. Yeah, thanks. Gosh, I was just listening to those lowlights. Yeah, let's call them that. Was that the worst you've ever seen an Australian team field? It just about has to be in the grand final, doesn't it? And it wasn't just the 5 catches, but 3 balls going for boundaries after they were misfielding. Like, to me, the misfielding was almost worse than the drop catches at times.
It was a throwback to the 80s, to those years where Australia's fielding was absolutely deplorable while they were a struggling team. A week ago, they dropped 5 catches against Scotland, and it got brushed over because it was a dead rubber, and it was a weird. The whole thing was weird. But if fielding is a glimpse into the soul, that was abject yesterday.
Yeah, it was. It was really lazy and sloppy and awful, wasn't it? Particularly against an emerging nation who were very good in the field. So that robbed you of any argument as in, conditions are a bit dewy or the lights weren't great, because Afghanistan's fielding was sharp. Their running between wickets was better than Australia's. And you're right when you mentioned the 1980s. I had a flashback in my mind of when Bob Simpson took over in the mid-1980s, and he said, we are an ordinary fielding team. And he said, our resources aren't great at the moment, but I tell you what, the first thing I'm going to do is make us the best fielding team in the world, and everything will follow that. That is the fundamental pillar of what we do. And it did. Within 8 years, they were the best team in the world and won the World Cup. So it is important, and they didn't deserve to win that game, my goodness me, for about 4 different reasons.
That they didn't. It is, for a little while, it looked like Glenn Maxwell might have dug them out of it, but you can't do that much wrong and avoid the beating that you deserve. So let's pick through it one piece at a time. Why do you think they bowled first when this operation has been all about analytics, and they have proven us on the outside wrong time and time again? The analytics of the ground were bat first, and they did the opposite.
Yeah, I couldn't understand it. My only rationale would have been that they thought this is a potentially tricky wicket and we don't really know what's par. Let's put them under pressure. But, Jared, you know what? Sometimes these analytics go too far and you forget the most basic thing of all. And I'll tell you what it is. Australia has a secret weapon in every World Cup it plays, and no other team has got it, and it's called an aura. It's called an aura. And everyone knows Australia wins World Cups for fun against Afghanistan, who have not only never beaten Australia, but they haven't really, for all their promise, beaten anyone major in this competition. So if you bat first, and even if you make, I'll throw a number at you, 135, you've still got to say to them, hey, Afghanistan, you're nervous, aren't you? Because we're Australia. Go get them. See how you go. You're nervous? You've never beaten us. This is the World Cup. They would have been terrified. But by letting Afghanistan bat first, you just you get them into game. They got in the game with a nice little foothold, and their little swingers, who are very impressive, and spinners, and their agile fieldsmen took over. So, yeah, just a bad call from the start.
Why do you think Stark didn't play?
I think they thought that it could be a sort of a seamers hit the deck. And it certainly, there were plates there. But it was a really poor call. I just could never, in any game of white ball cricket, find an argument for dropping Mitchell Stark, because let's look at the ABC of it. A, how's his recent form? And you go, fine, he just won the IPL final in India. 2, is he suited to white ball cricket? And then you say, well, he has taken more white ball World Cup wickets than anyone in history, recently passing Lasith Malinga as the most successful bowler in World Cups. I'm talking World Cups, white ball.
Yeah.
He's taken more wickets than anyone. And thirdly, Jared, the conditions of the day. I reckon they made this call too early to leave him out, because when they arrived at the ground, it was palpably apparent in the warm-ups that the Afghanistan bowlers were swinging the ball, as indeed they did during the game. Travis Head got bowled by a beautiful swing delivery. So, and I get that it was going to be a low-scoring game and Stark goes for runs, but that's been his trademark. Australia did not take a wicket until the 16th over. And you rest Mitchell Stark, who's the greatest white ball first over guy. We joke about it every week. How often does Mitchell Stark take a wicket in the first over? You drop him. and so you still no wickets in the first 15 overs. So I just thought it was a poor call.
And you didn't need hindsight for that either. We were all texting each other in real
Yeah,
time.
yeah.
What I think the thing I ended up objecting to most is what the hell was Marcus Stoinis doing with a send-off when the openers had put on 118 and Australia didn't take a wicket until the 16th over? That was beyond embarrassing.
Yeah, and do you know what? I wasn't sure whether you'd mention that, but I'm sort of glad you did because you beyond embarrassing. That's right, and it says a little bit the sort of slightly confident, haughty, and relaxed attitude of Australia. Dropped 10 catches in 2 games, and you're giving a guy a send off for the first wicket when they put on more than 100. I mean, are you connected to the real world, Jared? I don't know. I mean, it was just it said to me, that was an old-fashioned, arrogant send-off. And he might say he was being playful or whatever, and he is a bit out there, Marcus Stoinis, but gee, it wasn't the send-off of the day. I'm looking for guys. I want to see guys diving in the field, stopping balls, being desperate, making catches, not giving sort of flirty send-offs to batsmen when they're 1 for 112.
And there was, so you go, if you're going to do that, you'd want to do something with the bat. And he had the opportunity batting with Maxwell as that was the partnership to guide Australia through. So the top order didn't fire a shot and got knocked over. It looked like Maxwell would probably bat Australia to victory. And that's what had happened against Afghanistan famously in the 50 over World Cup. But he got out just when he was needed and nobody else lent a hand.
No, they didn't. But Jared, I've got to say it. Are you enjoying it? I've really enjoyed being a dodgy deck man from way back. Just the challenges of these difficult wickets and the fact that 140 can be a winning score. I mean, watching those match after match in the Indian Premier League where 280 was playing 250, bowlers were absolute slaves. Like, what a joy it is to see some of these flash Harrys who've got one gear, fourth gear, and they're practicing range hitting at training. When I tell you what, in a game like this, a two or a single, that they're important. Sometimes I think batsmen forget about that. In heavy duty wickets of the Caribbean, you don't underestimate just getting off strike, finding a gap, turning one into two. I mean, we all love the big hits, but in a game like last night, that could have been really important. And it's interesting, Jared, as we speak, the Australians have landed in St. Lucia. Geez, a busy schedule. I mean, they finished after midnight, got up in the morning, caught a 1 o'clock flight, landed at St. Lucia at about 5. Coaching staff went straight to the ground to have a look at the deck, and they'll be playing at 10:30 tomorrow morning, which is midnight tonight. So that's as cramped a schedule as you get in international cricket.
So I want to talk about tonight shortly. I don't just want to assess Australia, and I made a point of this at the top of the show, is to salute Afghanistan and this moment of what it represents for them. So it's the first win against Australia. It's been building for a while. They've been the best story of the past 2 World Cups, I think. I think on an international sporting scale, what this cricket team has done against the backdrop of what that country has gone through, on the political front, on the religious front, it's an absolutely remarkable story that this cricket team has been able to rise through this generation. And it felt like yesterday they got the full plaudits for it.
Oh, yeah. And we take it for granted, the support systems we've got in Australia. Some of those Afghanistan players, travel hundreds of kilometres along difficult roads to training in Kabul. There's gunships circling overhead. I remember Peter Ranson, who used to coach them, used to say that, they're high spirited and they're very, very grateful for what the game's given them. I'm still disturbed by confused by Australia's stance against Afghanistan. We will not play them in bilateral matches because of the way the Taliban government treat women and women cricketers, but we do play them in World Cups because there's a different set of rules. I mean, I put this question to you, Jared. If it was India treating women the same way, would Australia still play India in Test series? That'd be an interesting question, wouldn't it? So, but look, Rashid Khan, a tremendous character, and watching him last night bowl his wrong, and my goodness me, it's still a gorgeous ball. He beats both sides of the bat. He's a beautiful T20 cricketer. And the thing about it, there was no fluke about it. Their batting was, while Australia was snatching at it, playing all these rash shots, they were really calculated, the Afghans. They were really calculated. In the field, desperate and glue-fingered at times. Running between the wickets good, and their swing bowling, man, oh man. As I said, the ball that got Travis Head was good. So there's 4 different skill sets in which they outplayed Australia.
20 World Cup reaches its pivotal moment for Australia tonight. Have to win to reach the semi-final stage after the defeats to Afghanistan yesterday. Our debate here for New Vision Clinic's Keyhole Laser Vision, next generation technology. Call 1-800-20-20-20. The wisdom and experience of Robert Craddock. So, Crash, what are your expectations? Can this team make amends? 3, you've got to win at some point in a World Cup. You've got to win a sequence of games. They now have to win 3 in a row.
Yeah, you know what, Jared? And here's the funny thing, like, we've criticised Australia yesterday. They had a bad game. I think they'd won their previous 7 World Cup T20 games. So they were due for a bad game. And sometimes it can actually, in a weird sort of way, be the acorn on your seat to get you moving. I think Stark surely has to come back. If he misses out tonight, I'll pass out in front of the box. Probably ahead of Ashton Agar, who was okay, but in the field he was really poor. But and inexcusably so, I might say. But Stark has to come back. They will be, I reckon, maybe a little jaded from that travel schedule. But Australia has shown a pattern in World Cups when they absolutely positively have to get it done. They normally do. They could actually win tonight and still miss out because, of course, Afghanistan plays Bangladesh. And I reckon Afghanistan will try and bat last in that game and get their, if Australia wins, get their run rate over Australia. Like, they will know it may be a crazy sort of equation where they've got to score, 170 in 5 overs or something stupid, so they can't do it. But Australia, even if they win tonight, they're not absolutely, totally, categorically guaranteed of making the next round.
It's the fact that the Afghanistan play second is an interesting dynamic, but yeah, they've got to take care of business first. The other group, England is through. West Indies and South Africa are playing now. The West Indies are 3 for 87 it's just the start of the 13th over. So the beauty of this has been such a tight-fought World Cup, as South Africa have done so much right, but they're not guaranteed going through either.
No, if they lose this game, they've had... I shouldn't laugh, but poor old South Africa, who have never won a World Cup, they get through 4 tight finishes, 4 absolutely nail-crunching finishes in a row, which they're never renowned for. They're big chokers in World Cups. They somehow get over the line. And wouldn't it be a classic if they lost today and then bye-bye? You know what I mean? Like, it was, they will go straight to the therapist's chair, I think, if they lose today and miss out. But I tell you what, it's been a good World Cup, though. Plenty of themes. The USA going well. Some nice little minnow upstart performances in the opening rounds, and a genuine mystery over who's the best team. So I think it's been, it's done its job, created ripples in America, due to the USA team. So it's had a nice flavour, the T20 World Cup, and more than anything, Jared, it's a tiny little foothold for the game to really start thinking about taking USA seriously. I know it's got Major League Cricket there, but it needs more than that. And there's the potential in the USA. As Shane Warne said, he said once, if there's one thing I would like to see in cricket, just one thing and one thing only, it would be USA to become a major cricket force, he said, because it will change the game. And it only has to be in T20. It doesn't matter. That'll be fine, but it would change the game.
All right. I've got one more, and it's irking me, has been ever since last week. Why would Dave Warner revisit sandpaper at the Super 8 stage of a World Cup? Why would he brandish that in front of teammates with the unsubtle message that I've been covering for you? Why would he do that at a World Cup?
Yep. Well, this if you said best guess, he sat down with reporters for what could be his final interview as an Australian player. David Warner may never represent. David Warner's international career could come to an end tonight if India beat Australia. That would be the end of him. And I think he was well aware it was his last interview. The journalist went back in time and looked at his career as a whole, and he couldn't quite keep it secret. I think he tried to put a lid on the saucepan. I sensed there was a lot of things he would have liked to have said about being made a scapegoat for Sandpaper Gate. Hey, but hang on, he was the guy who initially, was outed as the architect of it, so he doesn't deserve that much sympathy. But where the sympathy was that others were protected, and so that's an interesting statement. We await David Warner's end of career book with interest. He signed up to do it. He signed up 3 years ago. He will do it. I'm so fascinated, Jared, by how much water he lets out of the dam. You know, how much, like, it's palpably obvious that, more people knew than those about the sandpaper than those who were convicted, the three players, Bancroft, Smith and Warner. What do you do? How much do you say? That's why guys like Mark Bosnich, Bozza was offered $1 million to do his autobiography. And he said, you know what? It was good money. He said, but I just would have burnt so many people who were near and dear to me. And he said, you can say, oh, for $1 million. He said, nah, it's worth more than money. So David's got a lot of thinking to do over that. What do you think of it?
Shouldn't have done it at the Super 8 stage of a World Cup. I can't imagine that wasn't unsettling within the team setup, knowing the history of it. And it was just such a brandishment of it. You go, no, don't do that. There's plenty of time post-career. You've got another week to go. You wanted to be part of this campaign, the driving force behind it. Let's see it to fruition without unsettling it. It was a weird thing to do mid-campaign for me.
Well, what you said about unsettling people, I know for a fact that's 100% right. Because I know Cricket Australia staff were very, very concerned about the headlines on the story. And when it reaches that level where they express concern about that, there's been a lot of chatter in camp. The full Sandpaper Gate story has never really come out. They only interviewed 3 players. And you think of that just a handful of players. They didn't interview the whole squad. I know players who were ready to say what they were going to say and just said, I was sitting there, my phone never rang. I was never invited to say my piece. So when you leave untied threads, you are always a chance that history will catch up with you. And that's the situation here. And I sensed that David, in what was going to be his last interview as an international player, just thought just a little clip across the cheeks as if to say, I haven't forgotten what has happened. And, that said to me that he will have more to say down the track. It's a good point you make about why would you say it now. Did it create a few ripples? It definitely did. No question about that. You're on the money there, Jerry.
I'm not unsympathetic to Warner's place in the whole scheme of things and was defensive of him when there was the idea that somehow there was going to be a new, fresh public hearing into his role in it to judge whether he could be a leader again in Australian cricket. Is that was rotten, but revisiting it at this moment of a World Cup campaign, that was the wrong thing to do.